Welcome. My name is Chris Lynch. Tonight we're starting with a few public hearings. I declare these public hearings open.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2017 Metal Roof Improvement Bid Package 2 project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on February 14th, 2017. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on February 15th, 2017. The district will receive bids on this project at 2:30 p.m. March 15th, 2017 at the Educational Services Center, 1725 North Dodge Street, Iowa City. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on February 15th, 2017. Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, just one quick one. Can you give us an idea, Dwayne, exactly what roofs we're looking at in this?
I think the majority of this project is West High School, the press box, and then there's a softball concession stand and softball locker room, and those buildings need to be redone.
And the West High roof, is that the roof that was damaged?
No, not at all. These are outbuildings. The
Okay.
roof that was damaged was on the West High itself.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the public? Moving on. Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2017 West High School upper level restroom remodel project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on February 14th, 2017. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on February 15th, 2017. The district will receive bids on this project at 2 p.m. on March 9th, 2017 at the Educational Services Center, 1725 North Dodge Street, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on February 15th, 2017. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Next. Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2017 Liberty High School softball field project at James Van Allen Elementary. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on February 14th, 2017. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on February 15th, 2017. The district will receive bids on this project at 2 p.m. on March 15th, 2017 at the Educational Services Center, 1725 North Dodge Street, Iowa City. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on February 15, 2017. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Around that final turn. Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2017 Longfellow Elementary School renovation and addition project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on February 14, 2017. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on February 15, 2017. The district will receive bids on this project at 2 p.m. on March 30, 2017 at the Educational Services Center, 1725 North Dodge Street, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on February 15, 2017. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
Thanks for the speed reading. Well done. I declare these public hearings closed. Welcome to the Iowa City Community School Board meeting on Tuesday, February 28th. I'd like to welcome those in the audience and those on TV for taking an interest in our district business. I'd like to start tonight by introducing those at the table with me tonight. To my right is Director Lori Rotland, Phil Hemingway, Brian Kirschling, Paul Rosler, Chris Liebig, and Recording Secretary Kim Colvin. Steve and Latasha are out tonight. And with that, the public is reminded if they wish to speak, they need to complete a speaker form found at the table at the lobby and turn it in. During community comments, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting during the community comment section of the agenda. I felt like I had to speed up just for you. The first item on the agenda is community comment. Thank you for your interest in the Iowa City Community School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You're reminded to give your name, address, and topic you wish to speak. During community comments, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting and shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. The initial community comment period shall be limited to 1 hour. Remaining community comment, to the extent necessary, shall take place at the end of the meeting. To the extent you are commenting on items not on our posted agenda, the board may ask follow-up questions, but is prohibited by Iowa open meetings laws from responding to questions from speakers or engaging in substantive discussions regarding non-agenda items. All right, with that, first up is Charlie Eastman, and Rafael Montano will be on deck.
Thank you, President Lynch. My name is Charlie Eastham, 953 Canton Street in Iowa City. Just want to talk very briefly about your work sessions coming up, which you'll address, I think, some measures that may provide better defense for immigrant students in the district. And I would like to ask that you consider seriously establishing the task force that actually the Equity Committee has asked you to establish that will addressing concern from families regarding new immigration policies, making recommendations on policy that states or staff and faculty cannot divulge our student information to immigration custom enforcements and supporting resolutions in favor of protecting students and their families. I know you're looking at a draft resolution, I think, tonight, and I've had a chance to look at it very briefly. I think it does a lot, but I think there's probably some more things that we'll be interested in doing as we go along here. As we all know, this is a very dynamic situation with the federal government right now, and there may be a lot of things that we need to do in the next several weeks that we don't yet know about. So I hope you'll really consider establishing the task force that the Equity Committee suggested. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Raphael? And next will be Elizabeth Benyel.
Good evening. My name is Rafael Morataya. I'm an Iowa resident, and I have 3 kids at the school system here. And I'm a director of the Center for Worker Justice. And as a director, we spoke with a lot of parents and members of the community, and they have expressed to us the fear that they face, all the threat that they've been hearing. Almost every day I'm here that raid happening in Iowa City, and thank God doesn't happen yet. But people are concerned. People are concerned about the safety in the schools because afar we don't hear anything from the district. And personally, I'm worried too about something. I do think it's necessary for the district to do some training to the teachers, because I give you an example from my daughter. She's been hearing from teachers saying that the wall can be good or can be bad, and everyone has an opinion about this. But for immigrant kids, already have the fear and the stress in their skin. And hearing from the school beside the television saying about the wall, believe me, doesn't give any good environment, and they don't have the confidence to be in the school. So I know that you moving forward in this. I've been seeing some draft, and I hope that today you will make the right decision on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Raphael. Elizabeth? Elizabeth? Anna Lano? And on deck will be Eric Johnson.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ana Cano.
Good afternoon, my name is Ana Cano.
Soy madre de 3 niños en este distrito.
I am a mother of 3 children in this district.
Y nos preocupa la situación en la que están viviendo hoy en día nuestros niños en esta comunidad o en todo el país, más que nada.
One of my biggest concerns in this district is the situation that my children are going through in their school.
Y les pedimos de favor que de ver alguna manera de poder proteger a nuestros niños por el estrés que están viviendo día a día en nuestra comunidad.
I am here to ask you for my children and to see if you guys can do something about the situation, the harassment that they're living in their classrooms.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks, Anna. Eric? On deck will be Amanda Van Horn.
Eric Johnson, 1630 Ridge Street, Iowa City, Iowa. I'll keep this short. Protecting our immigrant and refugee families in this district isn't just a moral imperative, although it is that. It's not just the right thing to do. For those of us who aren't immigrants or refugees, it's in our own self-interest. Immigrant and refugee families make our schools more diverse and vibrant and richer. At Twain, my daughter's education has been greatly enriched by the presence of these families. She's learned games, jokes, insights, and new ways of seeing the world. We're grateful for that, and we urge the board and the administration to do everything they can to adopt real structural institutional measures to protect these families in this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Amanda? And on deck will be Alyssa Rodriguez.
Hi, my name's Amanda Van Horn. I live at 1722 Ridgeway Drive in Iowa City. I'm a parent, though my children are not yet students in Iowa City Community Schools, and I'm also a concerned citizen. I'm a member of the Iowa City chapter of SURGE, Showing Up for Racial Justice. I'd like to speak to the work session agenda item on how we support immigrant students and their families in our district. I understand that we already inform families that students do not have to provide a social security number or information about their immigration status to go to school, and that our district does not partner with federal agencies to engage in immigration enforcement. That said, I believe we could do more to support the vulnerable students in this district. Students come to school to learn. It's very hard to focus on learning when you're worried about the safety and security of yourself or your family members. I'd like to urge our board to follow the lead of the Des Moines Public Schools and adopt the suggestions of the Southern Poverty Law Center in support of students for immigrants and refugees in the Iowa City schools. These actions include, but are not limited to, identifying individuals at each campus who can serve as the immigration resource advocate, working with parents and students to develop a family immigration rate emergency plan, and providing safe places for students to wait, providing counseling, providing relevant legal and social resources for students who've had a family member detained, working with local immigration advocates and organizations to support families and students, including things like proactively connecting families with mental health providers, social workers, pro bono attorneys, and local immigration advocates and organizations. Partnering with immigration rights organizations to schedule a Know Your Rights workshop on each campus to inform students and families about their rights. In addition, I believe the schools should proactively educate staff about their roles and responsibilities. Specifically, staff should be reminded routinely that FERPA prohibits them from disclosing student information without parent permission, regardless of who is asking. Proactive education of teachers, principals, and staff may actually protect students and their families from direct harm. Determining the best way to serve families and students may require the development of a task force well connected with local immigrant and refugee communities. In addition to school officials and local social service agencies, these communities themselves should be represented on the task force, as they are most likely to know their own needs and concerns and may be their own best advocates. We owe all students the opportunities to be their best selves. This includes, to quote Plyler versus Doe, helping them to become a self-reliant and self-sufficient participant in society with the fundamental values necessary to the maintenance of a democratic political system. Education is the best way I know of to encourage this outcome, and education is only possible in a life without fear. I urge you to identify ways that our district can support students in living a life without fear. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Alyssa? And up next will be Ryan Spurgis.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Rodriguez. I reside at 2217 Muscatine Avenue here in Iowa City. I will be speaking to the topic of supporting immigrant and undocumented students. I stand here today as a community member, a product of the ICCSD myself, and an ally to the many valued immigrants in our community. I would like to start by pinpointing 3 of the district's key belief statements stemming from its mission. Each person has intrinsic worth. The understanding of and respect for diversity are fundamental to individual rights and enriched community life, and each person has a right to be in a safe environment. With respect to these core beliefs, I ask that you, the esteemed board members, move to make a resolution in further support of our immigrant and undocumented students. Creating a resolution similar to that of the Des Moines Public Schools, which was approved on February 7th, would be the next appropriate step in asserting district-wide support for these students and their families, and would help ensure that they would not be treated differently based on their immigration status. It is important to keep in mind that the impact of the deportation of an undocumented person struck our community greatly just 2 years ago. The father of ICCSD students was taken from his home almost exactly 2 years ago to this day. He was arrested even before his daughters, who were Twain Elementary students at the time, were awake and had the chance to hug him goodbye. The residue of that story lingers in these students' lives, and it surely has been reawakened by our current administration's increase in immigration and enforcement recently. This was not the first time that deportation has affected our community or our students, and it won't be the last. When asked about the impact his removal had on these students, their mother, who wishes to remain nameless, stated that, "I try not to bring up the situation because of all of the traumas it raises for them. My youngest is always saying that she wants to be back with her dad and does not really understand why she can't be. My middle child still has nightmares. It is very hard to not be afraid and remain calm when we see what is going on around us today. The district, as an institution of educators and people to whom we entrust our children's care daily, must publicly acknowledge the traumatization and re-traumatization that immigration enforcement can have on children. It must take a stand to ensure it does its part so that such actions do not disrupt not only the educational time of these students, but their physical and mental well-being as well. The district must not stop there. They must keep in account the ongoing and daily anxiety this immigration enforcement raises for our children and their parents, whose parents may be documented or who may be documented themselves. And we must continue the conversation in enacting towards devising safety plans if a sweep or a raid takes place in our community. Let us be prepared and do our part so that no other ICCSD student has to beg her mother to be reunited with her father again. Thank you for your time."
Thanks, Alyssa. Ryan? And up next will be Natalie Espina.
Hello, my name is Ryan Spurgetis. I live at F Street in Iowa City. I just want to speak tonight as a parent of an Iowa City student currently at Southeast and another who will be starting at Longfellow in the fall of 2018. To note that it is extremely important to safeguard all students, that the climate of hostility toward immigrants and refugees we see recently is abhorrent and has no place in Iowa City schools or anywhere else. We ought to do all we can to support these children and families who've come to our community and recognize that they have every right to safety and education that we do, and they should not be subject to fear of police and ICE harassment. I also believe these students and families richly improve our community. And I also urge the board to consider very carefully policies relevant and to not enact those which contribute to that toxic climate, and instead, some of those suggestions being heard tonight, which do support students. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Natalia? And then Hodna.
Thank you to the
up next.
board, and thank you administrators for being here tonight and to the community. My name is Natalia Espina. I'm of 526 Terrace Road in Iowa City, Iowa. The topic is for the work session agenda, support for undocumented and immigrant students. Thank you to the District Board of Directors for taking the time to hear our public comment this evening and your dedication to the best interest of all students at the Iowa City Community School District. I work for the district as a program manager for the Healthy Kids School-Based Health Clinic, and I'm also here as a caring and concerned community member and friend to many immigrants. Many of us here tonight have hopes that the District Board of Directors will take seriously the subject of immigration customs enforcement and its potential impact on our student body. Our children should be focusing on being children and learning, and the district and board have a responsibility to safeguard this right. One of the beauties of Johnson County and Iowa City Schools community is that we are a welcoming and safe place for families and children. It's what makes people gravitate here. As a child, I immigrated from Chile in the early 1980s and have since then called Iowa City my home for most of my life. I grew up in the now defunct Hawkeye Court student housing while my father pursued his doctorates, And one of the greatest blessings for my childhood was the opportunity to surround myself with people from diverse backgrounds and varied nations all over our world. Never would I exchange my childhood memories for other ones. My friends were from Iran, Ethiopia, Iceland, USA, and Mexico, among various other global nations. And at that point, the population was much smaller. I never had a day where my personal or my family's livelihood felt threatened, and I had loving arms to run home to every day. As board members, you are well aware of the general uptick of our immigrant populations that our district has been blessed with over recent years. Students in our classrooms are fortunate that tolerance and respect for different languages and cultures are taught as they develop to take these values into their future years. Preferred home languages and many, and the subsection of our English language learner population has increased approximately fivefold from 2012 to the present day. From professional experience at the school-based health clinic, we felt an increase in our immigrant population needs, including stories of toxic stress and trauma from a migration or situations that occurred in the child's home countries. This trauma can have lasting impact, which has the ability to manifest itself in varying degrees in terms of educational achievement and negative or positive outcomes. While instruction and other needs does present some challenges, it has been met with much effort and grace as possible during a time in which budgetary constraints and constantly looming at a time when the value of our educators' work is being questioned. Alas, these subjects are for another time. We have district teachers and staff who care greatly for the well-being of all students, regardless of race, sex, creed, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, or immigration status. A 1982 decision by the Supreme Court of the United States declared that all resident children are entitled to an education in public schools, and it is illegal to deny a free public education to children who are not legally admitted into the U.S. Our district has taken on many proactive steps so far that keep in line with an inclusive and welcoming environment for all. My ask of you today is that we take this inclusive mentality to another level, given our current state and national climate, and that we adopt K-12 model resolutions that have already been mentioned. I ask that the district take a position in supporting every single immigrant student who has already been or will be impacted in the coming days. While I understand you will be met with challenges in your decision, please take a moment to empathize with the looming fear of what it is like to not know who to trust, for the fear that you will not want to leave your home, for the fear that one day your mother, father, or guardian will not pick you up from school. Take a moment to think about the children who you love and know for whom these fears are very real. Consider giving your administrators, teachers, and all staff proper tools in relation to what they can ask immigrant students and families. Consider changes to policies regarding public records.
Thanks,
Consider
Nadia.
a safety plan for students should their parents not pick them up from school one day.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Hodna? Elizabeth Rook?
Hello, my name is Hudna Nurnberg. I live at 720 North Dubuque Street in Iowa City. First of all, thanks to the board for having us and for listening. So I'm the daughter of an immigrant from Algeria, which is a Muslim-majority country in North Africa. I was a child during the Gulf War, and in that context, I knew that my father looked a lot like Saddam Hussein. But I also knew that school was a place where I was safe, where I was protected, where I was valued, and where I was supported and allowed to thrive. And that is what I want for every child in this school district. As Natalia just said, every child has the right to an education. That is our mission, and that's what we hope to uphold, regardless of any student's status as documented or undocumented, regardless of their race, religion, creed, skin color. And I want you to please take a very strong commitment to upholding those values, to ensuring that every child and young person has access to the education that they deserve. I have heard from community members who feel threatened or harassed because of their religion, because of the language they speak, or because of the color of their skin, especially given the wider political climate right now. I think it is imperative to take a strong stand in support of all children and all young people in this district. Thank you.
Thanks, Hodna. Elizabeth? And the last call for Elizabeth Benyo will be next.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rook. I live at 809 South 7th Avenue, Iowa City, Iowa. I am the IJAG specialist at City High. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I teach 11th and 12th graders who are at risk of not completing high school, a college and career and readiness course. So I think my main message that I'm wanting to share is that the fear is really real in City High, and I imagine in the rest of our schools as well. Nearly every day since the election, I've had students talking to me about this issue. I have had numerous students spend days with me crying. Numerous students tell me that their families are packing their bags, that they're not sure about their safety in our town, and they're not sure what that means for school. I've had families say that they're not going to fill out their free and reduced lunch form anymore. People say that they're not going to go to Kirkwood Regional Center because of this, that the fear is real, and people are making decisions right now based on what they're hearing in the media, what they're hearing about in other towns. I just have endless stories about that happening with my students, and we need some real leadership on the issue because of that. I'm never totally confident in what I say back. I'm never totally confident in encouraging the student to go to the Kirkwood Regional Center. And I need help with that, and I know the rest of my colleagues at City High do, and across the district. I had a group of immigration law students in my classroom one morning to just ask some questions, and it spread like wildfire to some teachers, and we had about 30 staff members there just wanting to understand what the immigration bans were, what the executive orders were, what was happening, and what was going to happen to any of our students. And those questions weren't all able to be answered, but there was a little bit of peace on that day. So things like that are, I think, the real work that a task force on this could do if given the authority by the board and if able to work at the district level. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of people willing to do it. So not only a resolution would make a big difference as a statement, but also having a task force and a group of people dedicated to doing that work and figuring some of this out, even as it changes and as people are afraid. I think that would mean a lot to the community, and but also do more than just mean a lot. I think it could do a lot of good. So thank you.
Sure.
Could you expand a little bit on your students concerned about the regional center? Is it leaving what, they obviously they must perceive City High as a halfway safe area?
Somewhat. It's also just that they have to fill out forms and they have to put a social security number down. And if they don't have a social security number, or that social security number's not real or connected to DACA, it's just really scary to put that down. And so this student that I'm thinking of went to the meeting, saw on the screen that there was a social security number, panicked and ran to my office crying and was like, Ms. Rook, I don't know what to do. And so then I went and found out for her that she could enroll and just click. There was like a button to click that she didn't have a social security number. But just seeing that on the form was that scary. And then I think she's also scared to go.
Excuse me, has she visited the regional center? Have you taken them out there to see?
She has,
that? Okay.
yeah, and she will go. We figured it out, and she's going to go.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for that additional information.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Benyol? All right, that's it for community comment. Thank you for your comments. And just as a reminder, we will have, this is on our work agenda for tonight, and that'll be immediately following this meeting. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Yeah, I would like to pull items 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16.
And did you ask your questions ahead of time?
Excuse me?
Did you ask your questions ahead of time?
On some, yes, but not completely on everything.
Chris, I'd also believe I need to pull number 10.
10 and then 12 through 16. So just
Yes.
to check, I always like to check. 10 is health insurance, 12 is Sylvan,
Yes.
13 is boys and girls, 14 is Hoover Playground,
Right.
15 is professional services, 16 soccer field.
Right.
Bleacher. All right, entertain a motion to approve consent agenda minus item 10 and items 12 through 16.
I move that we approve the consent agenda items as presented, absent numbers 10 and then 12 through 16.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, the bills. Phil? The bills?
Oh, the books, yes. Let's see, I did that, and Paul did it as well. Yeah, there's some things in there. There's some taxes we're paying on the Hy-Vee warehouse, which are substantial, and some other things like that. Like I say, when we have a chance to have a discussion on all of those things. But every question that I had was taken care of and answered.
Same with me. I had 3 questions, and either Leslie or Steve was able to answer them.
It's Phil, Paul. Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. Cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thanks, Kim. Next item on the agenda is the certified budget. And Craig, just before I hand it off to you, I just want to remind everybody that the certified budget is our annual do not exceed budget that sets the tax rate, and it's not necessarily the operational budget. And with that, I'll hand it off to you.
You're absolutely right. And tonight is an opportunity, according to our schedule, on February 28th for the board to have comment into the construction of the budget. We do have a little bit more known this year than last year. If you remember, we didn't know what our SSA, or allowable growth, was last year, and so I brought to you several scenarios last year, what ifs, if the allowable growth was this or this or this or this, but this year that's not necessary, so it's one set amount. I've constructed the budget in such a way as to keep the tax rate very, very similar to what it is this year. It's about a penny less. In fact, we are asking for a little bit more in the way of cash reserve in order to put that last measure onto a process that we've had in place as we've advanced towards the opening of Liberty, and the cost pressures that's going to place on the general fund, and also as we advance to our bond referendum, and our ability to, as I showed you at our last board meeting, the ability to trade off some of that cash reserve to soften the impact of the bond. Also, we're asking for a little bit more in our management fund due to early retirement, a little bit of increase in premiums for our insurance, and those kinds of things. And so when it's all said and done, our tax rate is very, very stable with last year, like I said, about a penny less. If there's any other things that you'd like for me to discuss, I did include some preliminary information in there, some comparisons that we always put in. The official recommendation will be made to you on the March 28th board meeting. That's when the superintendent will provide the recommendation, and then we'll go on to the hearing process from there. But other than that, I really don't have anything unless you want to provide feedback this evening.
Now on the, and I guess like you were saying, on this one, we've got a real good handle on our student support staff services costs, since we've already locked in the teachers and approved their contract and everything like that. With the meet and confer and administration that we haven't gone through yet, we're seeing from the re-estimation for 2017 to the budget for this year, $600,000 on 28, line 28. Can you explain the big increase there?
Yeah, as President Lynch indicated, this is a not to exceed.
Right.
And so there's what we go through each year is building a large enough bin that we anticipate for any potential expenditures. And we hope not to have to amend the budget, but if there's an area that we need to amend, like this year, we'll be amending the budget again. We do that as well. So there's some cushion in there. There always is every year, but like we said, this is a not to exceed amount.
Okay. And looking back, and I looked at last year's, which had actual numbers from 15 and that on the facilities acquisition and construction.
Mhm.
On last year's 2016-17, we had a re-estimation of 2016 as being 46 million, and the actual ended up being 61,800,000.
Liberty High School is the primary culprit there.
Okay.
We're ahead of schedule. We paid more out quicker than we had anticipated we would under that fiscal year. And so we needed to amend the budget in that particular area last year in order to bump that. But it's all about our building projects. And we never know at what pace they're going to go, how fast or how slow, what our cash flow is going to be. It's just a pure guess at this stage in the operation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it was last year, and Liberty went faster than we thought, so.
Well, Craig, we know they're on budget and on schedule. This just Twain was ahead of schedule.
Yeah, exactly. The projects were ahead of schedule. That's actually a good thing, but from a budgetary purpose, yeah, we had to go back and amend because we didn't think it was going to be that pace.
I guess I had a similar question of what Phil asked about line 28. I mean, it really kind of leaps out 16% increase from one year to the next for business and central administration, while most of their columns are like 3 or 4 or 5% increase. So how come that one's such a bigger percentage increase than the others?
Which
line 28, business and central administration.
I don't know. I'll have to dig in that for you. I don't have an answer for you right now. We usually just prorate those across, and yeah, I simply don't. I don't have an explanation for you. I can dig into it and provide one.
About a third of that, Chris, though, is related to the management fund and the insurance costs. So it's not all personnel costs that are in the general fund. So if you look at were to go to the detail of the by funds, almost $1.5 million of that is coming from the management fund for insurance related. And so we do have some increases there.
Does that affect other categories as well?
No, that's all falls into that functional category within the reporting.
But it includes all funds, not just the general fund, right?
Okay. So 28 includes what you were alluding to, the increases in those costs. Is it possible just to get it broken out as, just pure personnel costs, that type of thing?
This budget doesn't do that.
Okay.
Our line item budget will do that.
Okay. And all right.
I have some questions, and maybe this is some questions about the summary PowerPoint presentation. Sure. Can I address those? Okay. So first off, I always appreciate easily digestible format for presentation, and thank you for putting that together. Mm-hmm. The piggy bank does make me smile at the beginning, but one point, just going through the 15, 19 slides or so that you put together, I think that it's important that we come back to look at our open enrollment trend out and how that affects our district. Historically in our, just to rehash for some people who are here that may not know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but one of the most commonly cited reasons for open enrollment out is, especially at the secondary level, schools too crowded. And with the time spent here, I hope that we see that trend reverse itself with the opening of Liberty High, and when we don't have 2,100 kids at West High and 1,700 kids at City High. I hope to see that change, and start converging instead of diverging, because obviously that outward trend for dollars is concerning. It was more of a statement than anything else there. Sorry, Craig. I like the presentation of the budget growth versus supplemental state aid. Thank you for showing how just the cost of doing business, continues to change, as with any business, regardless of what new money we have coming in. And it's alarming when you look at the historical trends of supplemental state aid compared to just the cost of us doing business and the explosive growth that we have, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate the graph, and this is critical, of the ±3 districts compared to us as far as our tax rate. The $13.99 that we pay per thousand, compared to the three larger districts and the three smaller districts compared to us, you really get to see what kind of a value our taxpayers receive on their dollar. When you're looking at districts like Ankeny, which we get compared to in growth, paying over $19 per thousand in assessed value, and certainly looking at $15.50, so on and so forth, and we're at $13.99. That's impressive, and I know that over the last 6 years we've seen a trend of, and this is another one of your graphs here, of decreasing steadily tax rate for the most part. We had a little bump in there, but from 2011 we were at $14.69, and we're at $13.99 right now, and you're anticipating $13.98. I think that's great. I think a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people in this community don't know that. They look at their total tax bill and they don't understand that of, what is it, about $34 per thousand that people pay to their tax bill, we're only $14 of that. The rest of that is the county and the city. And I think that we continue to provide a great return on investment for our taxpayers, especially when you compare it to other large districts. I think we're, 10th out of 10 on the 10 largest districts when it comes to tax rate. Is that correct, Craig?
Yes.
10 out of 10, and we're $1 below the 9th.
Yeah, and I think we're 23rd out of 25, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So those are great things. I also appreciate you summarizing the trend in property tax valuation. The historical 4.5% growth, I think, is what your slide shows.
10-year moving average. Yep.
Yep. That's and some of your models that you presented to us at the work session, of course, are built on much more conservative levels of growth than that 4.5, which has been repeated and redundant for quite some time in our period of explosive growth. And of course, I think I want to go back to the one slide that says property tax levy projected. I think it's about slide number, I want to say 11.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that one? So after the point where the arrow points to in fiscal year 19, where it says estimated tax rate, when that increase up, that is assuming, I want to make sure, that is assuming bond passage, correct?
That's correct.
And so the thing that I think is critical to point out there, and then it's I think amazing, considering that with the sheer number of projects that we're looking at doing, that are the 20 or so building projects that are attached to the bond referendum we're going to be looking at, that are as the tax rate goes up through 5 successive planned bond sales, which not only take advantage of interest rates, but that at the zenith, at the highest point, we're still not where our property taxpayers were in 2011. And I want to, commend you on presenting it in that way. I think it's a nice visual aid. Now, of course, anything beyond fiscal year 19, I think is up in the air. The number of our community commenters have alluded to the unstable environment in which we live right now. But I think that that's an important message to take away, is that even at the zenith, down the road 5 years, at the highest point, it's no higher than what property taxpayers have paid going back in fiscal year 11. And I appreciate that. So I just want to make a couple comments about that. None of them are really questions. As I go through, I'm praising you for putting it together in a way that I can digest it. I'm a visual guy. Those are great visual slides, and I hope that people will take a chance to take a look at it.
Can I just follow up on that one question? So that chart, I was wondering the same thing about the chart. So that takes into account the issuance of the bonds, but it's about a 65 cent increase in those 2 years. How does that relate to the $1.62 number that we've been talking about?
Right. Well, see, all that is in flux, and as we've been talking, we got estimates last October, and it was $1.62, but that was last year's valuation, it was last year's interest rate assumptions, all those kind of things, right? So now we're going to have a work session tonight, and I'm going to present you with a whole new set of data. And what I need to do is when we finalize this presentation, this is just for your reflection tonight, but when I finalize this presentation, I need to build in what those current set of assumptions are, okay? And so this is just based on, what we knew before. We're continually refining that as we go through the process with our financial advisor, and we're going to, we'll end up with a final product here that will be able to convey the accurate information.
Does that same slide that Director Liebig and I are referring to, slide 11, some of the assumptions that help generate that slide, though, are based on slide 8, where it shows the 10-year average annual growth at 4.5%, correct?
It is, and as we've talked before, there's a legal way of calculating the bond, and then there's the way that it actually works itself out. Because when you calculate a bond, you can't estimate successive years' growth in the taxable valuation. But as reality would have it, we do get a bump in taxable valuation each year. And so when you plug in what you believe to be that growth, it actually softens the tax impact, right? And so this graph reflects that set of assumptions, that realistically what I project our public will have to pay is factored in here.
Recently we saw news reports about Clear Creek Amana planning to go out for a bond, and some of their statements were very similar to that, based on the property valuation growth and how it, okay. So I just want to make sure that we're talking apples and apples here.
Yep, you're right.
You know, a couple little questions back at the main chart that we had.
Okay.
One of the other numbers that kind of seemed larger than the others was the AEA support. It was about well, I just did it on the calculator, but I want to say about a 10% increase from one year to the next.
Yeah.
Might be looking at that wrong.
The AEA is, that's in an appropriation bill that hasn't passed yet in the legislature. And so under the school aid formula that we have to work with right now, the money that they normally take away from the AEAs or have in the past is actually incorporated into the formula. And there's not anything we can do about that. It's how the law is currently written. So we have to pass it the way the law is currently written. But we know that the legislators will more than likely come back and appropriate that money as they have in the past, and it'll come out of that line in the budget.
And whatever it is, it's a flow-through item.
Yeah, and it's just a standard flow-through item, right?
And then one other little question on line 30, student transportation. I guess I was a little surprised to see from 2016 to 2017 that number going up, since we did cut all that discretionary busing that year. I know we added some of it back, but is there some other explanation for why we would have spent more on transportation?
No, again, we're just building the largest bin possible, and we do have an anticipation of rearranging some costs for Liberty coming on.
No, I'm actually talking about 16 to 17, the number going up from 16 to 17, not from 17 to 18. Right. 17 to 18, I assume, reflects some of that busing that we're going to be doing now to the new, secondary paths and maybe activity busing.
Well, the savings are already reflected in this year, right?
Say that again?
The savings are already reflected in the base.
They are.
They shouldn't be reflected on actual 2016. We were just still doing the discretionary busing at that time.
No, that's this year.
Isn't actual 2016 15, 16?
You didn't cut discretionary busing until January of 16. We didn't put it in effect until this year.
That's what I mean. So that should be in the middle column, the effect of that. But
right.
But the middle column is actually higher than the last column. So it seems like we spent more after we cut the discretionary busing, and I'm just trying to figure out why.
Yeah. It's just a re-estimation. There's not. It's not something that it'll be. The final number will be what the final number is, but. We just put this in because we don't, our auditors check against this, and if we go over it, they slap our hands, and if we're under it, we don't. So we just make the bin big enough so that we can anticipate falling underneath what we expect as far as an actual expenditure.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and
Oh, so referring to being over and getting your hand slapped, to use your term.
Sure.
So in the area of business and central administration, last year we were over $330,000. This year we're over $130,000. So is that going to be a problem?
And actually, there's just 4 areas that the auditors look at. In the subcategories, you can be a little over, and that's not a problem, no.
Okay. Now, looking at instruction, last year we were under the budgeted amount, almost $3 million, and this year we're under the budgeted amount, almost $9 million. So one thing that I think of, and I'm sure you're going to tell me how I'm just not understanding it, and please do, but looking at this from a non-accounting viewpoint,
Sure.
One thing we hear from the legislators is the money's going to the administrators. The money's not going to the students. Well, we have a 16% increase in administrators here, and we have a 4.7% increase in instruction, and we're under budget for instruction. We're over budget for administration. So tell me what I'm missing there.
What we do for a reestimate is simply a matter of percentages, basically. We take actuals for 16 and how they work themselves out, and then we just increment that by a percentage that we feel, for instance, this last year, our settlement for salaries for 17 was around, the 2.5, 3% range. And so when you add benefits in and everything like that, so we just increment those salary pieces by that amount, and that's as close a reestimate as we need for this particular budget document. And so it's basically driven from 16 to 17 in that way, and there's no more science behind it than that.
Is there
honestly.
any reason we couldn't have hired more teachers since we're so far under budget, almost $9 million under budget?
No. This budget document has a strong disconnect with anything that we would do in our line item budget. And that's why we're under in the instructional line, is because we have to stay within our means. This is just building the bin. This is just, I'm an old farmer, so I just use the analogy. You're building the grain bin, and then the grain you put in it is the real value. This is just building the bin big enough so that we can make sure that we don't have any problems with audit, and that we make sure that we stay under these line items.
Well, and if you spend it all, you'd have nothing in your checking account, right? So.
Well, that's right. And see, a
So-
part of this complication that you're talking about is that we have a really large fund balance, cash in bank, but we're limited in our spending authority for schools, and that's what we have to stay with under. And that's what I project for you every quarterly report and all those kind of things. That's the true measure of where you're at. This document is a state compliance document, and it deals only with cash in bank, which has honestly a pretty big disconnect with the true spending authority that we have to spend. We're just building a bin for tax purposes. And so your focus in this particular document is to be focused around what the tax rate is. And all of the associated line items all fall out into our line item budget in a more meaningful way that we share with you on a quarterly basis. That's where you get the real meat of how we're doing as far as what we have to spend and that kind of thing. This document is, like I said, just a compliance document.
I'm just
or
going to
tax
say,
rate.
I'm just going to say it again. I mean, a lot of these questions are asking questions about an operational budget. They're really not applicable to a do not exceed budget.
I can't relate them to this document because they don't relate.
Now, I'm going to suggest if anybody's very interested in this, Craig's an expert, by the way, but Iowa School Board Association, School Finance, Course 201 and 301 are excellent and talk about this in
Right.
kind of great detail, the difference between your certified budget and operational budget.
Right.
And I understand it's hard to understand, but this is not the operational budget.
Absolutely.
So where do we stand with the operational budget in terms of those two categories?
Well, we just shared with you the quarterly report, and we're feeling pretty good about it. It's looking good as we project out at the end of this year.
So to
I
your
think we're
question,
gonna meet
Mario,
our
let's
metrics.
so when we review the quarterly report, you color code for us how we're doing against all the other large districts. So specifically on your question on administration, we're like 330th out of 335 districts, something like that. We're in the bottom 10 of 350 districts in terms of being the cheapest.
Right.
I would still want to know, though, the percentage increase in these different
Yeah,
categories.
that's what I'm getting at, is what the percentage
operationally.
increase
And
is.
again, it's not applicable. You're talking a certified budget, not an operational budget.
It's
So-
not, but I mean, at some point, when we're looking at that, I'd like to sort of review those increases from one year to the next.
Again, I just would advise, think about taking the Iowa School Board Association courses on that, because it's outstanding.
We provide that to the board every year in our certified annual report comparison. You can see all of these line items and their operational comparison with the year before and the percentage increase in actual expenditures. That would be a valid document for you to look at as far as seeing what the increase is.
Because I thought our
Is
last
that what this is, or is this different? Okay.
That's a certified budget. Our last operational budget was like 1.2 million under. 400 was in transportation, 400 was in operating expenses, and 400 was in TLC. I don't recall us talking about, we could have spent a bunch more in staff and everything else. I mean, it's great that we save money in transportation. It's great that we save money in operational efficiency. We were conservative on TLC because it was the first year of startup. But I think we're spending our operational budget, right? I mean, if we weren't, our unspent balance would be going way up, and you know what I mean? It's right where we want it, opening Liberty.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, and one thing going through, and I was looking at the 2016-17 and comparing it to this year. And in 30, student transportation, in the 16-17, you had budgeted $6.7 million for transportation, and we're substantially, we're way down from that. So looking at that, where it was and where we've come to in actual, well, in the re-estimated, we're down $2 million. So.
Yeah, our actual expenditures in transportation actually decreased $1 million this year.
Right. Well, and I'm going
actual
from
amount,
the budgeted 2017 to the re-estimated 2017. So,
In fact, I think your last words on transportation is we were too efficient.
We were very efficient this last year. You'll see that in the fee structure where we decreased our cost for pay to ride by nearly $100. That's because that's all we can charge. We were very efficient per student.
Thanks for bringing that up. When we do the transportation committee, I want to talk about that. But
sure.
Well, Craig, I just said I'm not going to reiterate what everybody's already said. I'm happy to see the tax rate flat or a penny down. We should always be clear, a penny down. That's outstanding.
Right.
And again, property valuation, we're a property-rich district, so that's great. And growing at 4.5% makes that happen. And again, I think, like Brian said, we're good value in terms of when you look at the rest of Iowa, we're 10th out of 10, the top 10, and we're $1 below number 9. And I know we got some good ideas to offset the tax rate as we approve the bond and make that happen and deliver the facilities master plan and transform the learning environment for our students. And I look forward to that outlook. I think we should add a few years to that outlook. I think you get out to 22. I don't know what the right number is. I'd like us to talk about, can we get out a couple more years?
Sure.
So we see the zenith, whatever it is, and then we see a clear trend coming down, and we can talk about that for the final report. But that'd be my only 2 cents, is let's add a couple of years on the outlook.
Yeah, and Director Kirschling brought up a really good point. I probably should note on this slide this year that we have this incorporates the concept of the bond. Just when somebody looks at it, they need to know that, and I didn't do that. And so that's good feedback. I appreciate that, and I'll do that in the final recommendation that we'll do next month.
All right, further discussion on certified budget, and you're back in a month?
Yep.
With the final report?
So are you looking for us to give feedback on how we think the budget should be built, or is that not what we're to do?
Actually, feedback on the tax rate, feedback on
the actual categories in the budget?
No.
No, you're not looking for our feedback on that?
It's no. they are what they are, simply because of how we're required to report them to the state. So it's really the business of the line item budget where we refine all of these numbers and make sure we live within our means. And since, like I told you, since the certified budget deals with the cash side of the equation, not spending authority, there's really a pretty big disconnect between this document and what we really have to spend. So feedback on individual line items is, you know, we can talk about them, but it's not going to have the value we think it's going to have. It's just not. So.
Okay. So and this is just for future. If you can provide this to me later. I'm looking at the quarterly report right now, and
sure.
And I'm not seeing the same categories that are listed here. So if you can just provide, I mean, it's helpful for me to see instruction and central business administration. I don't. It's not like the same wording. There's a whole lot of other things included in the quarterly report. If you could provide me a comparison.
I'm sorry. I must have not communicated properly. It's the report that I give you. It's called the CAR, the Certified Annual Report, that the board gets every September, October. That's where you'll see these categories, and that was given to you this last September, October.
Okay, so
and
we
that's
don't
where
get
we
an update
compare
through the year.
actuals from one year to the other, and you'll have these categories in it.
Okay. Can you give me the name again? I'm sorry. I just want to write it down so I look it up.
Certified Annual Report.
Certified Annual Report.
We
not
call
budget.
it the CAR, right?
And so there's no update that we get throughout the year on how we're
That's a
doing on that?
once-a-year report.
Once a year report.
With actuals.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I mean, I guess, yeah, it's helpful just to hear this stuff explained. As those four categories, you know, that they aggregate out, is there no policy decision implicit in the proportion that one is taking up of the total versus another?
No.
Okay. Because it seems like some of them are, this, you know, the do not exceed number is going up faster than other categories. That doesn't reflect any kind of decision on our part that we're going to let one side.
It doesn't.
But it does constrain what we can do within those categories. Is do not
You
exceed.
can't overspend that amount. That's why we add to it. That's why we make it as big as we can, in order for us not to have to be constrained in those individual categories, right?
All right, further discussion on the certified budget?
I don't have any.
Thanks, Greg. All right, next item on the agenda is Appendix 9, Dwayne.
Thank you. We only have 3 projects with 4 approvals this evening. The first one is Liberty High School. We have a change request for the Liberty High kitchen for $901, and that's a result of the district requesting the stainless steel cover be put on a column in that room. It's got a lot of moisture there, and we thought, and a lot of carts back and forth, so we asked for that. Step 8, Liberty High change request for the general project for $109,000. And most of that is flooring. We made the district request a lot of flooring changes out there where there were nearly $85,000. There was some unforeseen $21,000 for mechanical work where we had to lower some ceilings. And there's a lot of mechanical work out there, and Paul got to see it the past week. And I mean, it's packed in those ceilings. So there's just places where we had to make some modifications. At Lucas, we have a substantial completion. It's a partial substantial completion for the front office and entrance area. And all that does is set the warranty date and allows us to occupy the room. So Kennedy staff have already moved into that area. The last one's a roof management project. Not as simple. There's 3 projects. I'll just do them one by one. They need a little explanation. The first one is to replace the gym roof, the old gym roof at City High. We got several bids. The lowest bid we determined was non-responsible because they bid materials other than what were specified, and we found that out because they were nearly $100,000 low. So we did an interview with them and found out that they did not bid the materials as specified, so we're opting to go with the second low, which is dry space at $264,659. The second project, the City High press box and softball press box. We're doing those as well, and this is for a coating system. Pella Roofing was declared non-responsible because they were not a qualified applicator for this particular product. So we're going to the second low at $17,578, and that happened to be T&K, who is the non-responsible on the first part. It gets more interesting. The third part was to do some roofing at City High, Kirkwood, Wood, and Trek, and that's roof coatings. And the low bidder was Pella Roofing at $114,980. So all three companies got work, it's just not where they expected to. So with that, I'd answer any question you might have.
Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Appendix 9 items as presented.
Second.
Further discussion?
The unknown at Liberty that is now unknown with the ceiling being too high, you lowered the ceiling, is that?
No, there was just so much mechanical work going on. The space required for that was more than what was allocated in the original drawing, so we had to lower some ceilings.
Okay, and the changes in the flooring material, what did we go from and what did we go to?
Well, we originally had some, what we call Mondo flooring. They assured us that the product had been improved. We've had some bad experiences with it since then at West High when you drop acid on it. So this is flooring that was recommended for science rooms. We tried some experiments. We weren't happy with them, so we opted to go with a vinyl tile in these rooms. So the vinyl tile itself is a little bit cheaper than the Mondo flooring, but the Mondo flooring was bought and on site. So we're going to retain ownership of that and put it in other non-science room uses around the district. Does that make sense?
So you went with a lesser quality product just so that way you can replace it easier?
Well, no, I wouldn't term it that way. It's a product that our custodians prefer to take care of because it's easier to take care of. I know that it's a lesser product. It's been used for years and years. So we've had a lot of experience with the vinyl product that we selected, not so much experience with the Mondo, and the experience we have had has not been good in terms of science room applications.
Further discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thanks, Kim. Next item is items withdrawn with consent. I'm going to ask that we're concise with these items. We spent a fair bit of time on them last time. Start with number 10.
The only reason I pulled number 10 is that I need to abstain from the vote on that one.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
that we approve.
Further discussion? Kim, ready to vote?
I'm sorry, who was the second?
BK.
I think it's Brian, yeah.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with directors Liebig, Hemingway, Rotland, Kirschling, and Lynch voting yea and Russler abstaining.
All right, number 12.
Yeah, the Sylvan contract. Again, I'm not ready to raise the white flag of surrender to Sylvan. And it's $225 per session for a 2-hour session and to provide engineering-based activities. Can you elaborate on what that is and why these are the only people that can provide it?
Sure. So this is something that's happening similarly in about 5 of our other buildings in after-school programming. So it's a part of the larger context with before and after-school programming and summer school. Lemmy Elementary happened to have some additional summer school dollars left over, and the building principal came and asked if they could be expended this way. And we had Sylvan providing contracts similarly with these engineering activities at 5 of our 21st century learning sites. So it's similar to what students are getting at 5 other elementaries after school.
We've got this going out at 5 other spots that we're paying Sylvan to come in and do this type of stuff. How many students are we anticipating in these sections?
I think there's 20 to 25 students each week.
And is it one instructor?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Is it limited to the Breckenridge students?
Well, that's how Joan has described it to me. She describes the there's some history with why Lemmy has this pocket of money. And she goes on to say that neighborhood centers used to provide a program at Lemmy for Breckenridge, primarily Latino immigrants, for several years using decategorization funds. When that was pulled, there was some saved dollars then allocated to that building for that particular population, and that's why they had been given some summer school dollars. So since there was carryover, Eliza was asking to spend it in that way.
Did we ask this question ahead of time, Phil?
Excuse me?
Was this question asked ahead of time?
No, it wasn't.
I'd prefer that in the future.
I understand. Again, I think the University of Iowa Engineering College would probably be very helpful, and I know that they do MESA tutoring and stuff with our students, so.
Entertain a motion?
I move we approve consent agenda item number 12.
Second.
Further discussion? Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with Directors Liebig, Rotland, Kirschling, Lynch, and Ressler voting yea and Hemingway voting nay.
All right, number 13.
Yes, this is the contract with the Cedar Rapids Boys Clubs. I just wanted a little explanation on the programming that's going to be provided and why we didn't use the Parks and Rec of the Iowa City or Coralville or North Liberty.
Boys and Girls Clubs approached us as far as this dates back to actually I started communicating with them when I was principal at Southeast Junior High about a potential after-school program. Fits our larger MTSS structure with tiers of support for students to try to help them be academically successful and link them into positive after-school experiences. They had approached us with a model that they use an employee and some volunteer service to keep these kids engaged in an after-school activity, provide snacks, do transportation, and then, of course, do some academic work with them along with some recreation experience. So it really was born out of that from their outreach, and so we would run this in a pilot scenario for this spring and see how it goes, and if we have any kinks that we don't think are something we can overcome long term, but we really wanted to try it here through the end of this academic year and see if it's a model that fits for us.
Is this similar to what we did last summer with the Robert E. Lee Rec Center and those activities?
I think you could think about it in the same way. It's not necessarily affiliated, but I think you would see some of those same strong components as far as relationship building and then academic tutoring in a sense, and keeping up with coursework and making positive relationships to help the students be successful throughout their academic day.
Like an open gym component or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
The one complicating factor the Southeast is trying to work through is kids either in activities or how do they access some rec space, especially during cold months when it's nice enough to be outside. Kids can be outside and we have much more area to work with, but in this interim period, they're working through some of those issues.
Do you have any idea on the number of kids that they could handle or that type of?
Yeah, I think we're hoping to serve between 30 to 40 students originally. So that may be a little bit on the high side by the time students decide to attend and how that works, but that's the goal.
Just clarification, or I guess I also would have pulled this one because I'll have to abstain from voting on this as I have worked on this in my other job. But your question about this being a Cedar Rapids Boys and Girls Club, they are trying to start the Iowa City chapter of it. So this is
okay.
They're
Great.
working with Cedar Rapids as the model.
No, and finding someone to work with us on this is it I just was curious if it was something we could explore with some of our local vendors. I move that we approve consent agenda item 13.
Is there a second? Paul's can't second.
Second.
For the discussion? Kim, ready to vote?
I don't want that to kind of go unanswered. I mean, this is a conversation that's happened pretty explicitly with social service agencies for the last 3 years, and so I don't want it to be said that there wasn't any type of ask or collaboration for this. This is something that's been discussed for a substantial period of time. And to be frank, nobody has really stepped up with the proposal, even though it's been asked of those different agencies. I think that you're focused on the Parkers and Recreation, but it's also been asked by other community agencies as well. And when I say step up, I don't mean to say that in a negative way. I just mean that some of those organizations have other things that they're doing from a capacity standpoint, and maybe at that particular time or over the last couple of years, they just weren't at the capacity to address those needs. So I just wanted to make sure we clarify.
Kingsley. All right, Kim?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Liebig, Hemingway, Rotland, Kirschling, and Lynch voting yea, and Ressler abstaining.
All right, number 14.
Can I just ask a question? It doesn't change the vote or anything, but what you were just saying, is that similar to what's provided in Coralville by the Coralville Rec Center? This programming?
Is Boys and
It's
Girls?
for Southeast, right? Yeah. Yeah. So is this similar to what Coralville Rec Center provides?
I would have to see the Rec Center programming.
Theirs is not just for junior high, it's for...
Yeah, I think the
sixth
difference here
graders,
is
too.
bringing it on site. So I think that's where Kingsley was speaking about some community partners having a lot of pieces in place. The difference here, why when I said that MTSS or fits our RTI pyramid model about intervening, was the ability to be on site, have that close connection with the actual teaching staff. So that was a little flip in the model, and instead of outreaching to some of those programs existing somewhere else. So that was kind of the appealing factor for us to pilot and engage in this opportunity with this group.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, number 14.
Yes, 14. This one is under $300 difference between the two bidders. Can you just elaborate on why you chose the one and your rationale?
Well, I think probably the best way to answer that is to let Ben do that. He's pretty knowledgeable. So, Ben, if you don't mind.
We actually work with the two principals that are going to be working over there, Chris Paseric as well as Dennis Harnick, and then they went and worked with the faculty and staff as well as students, and then they generated a vote to decide which one they liked better. This one became a tied vote. Dennis ended up making the final decision on it.
So as far as staff was concerned, either one was appropriate, and we just chose the one because it was
Correct.
$300 cheaper than the one.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the quality of the product, they're equally.
Yeah, pretty much all of our playground equipment that we have out there right now is either Miracle Bond or Landscape Structures. And those are our two primary companies that we go to.
Okay.
Just curious, was the Lincoln principal included in any of that? Because, she's going to be out there too, right?
We did not include Ann.
No, she's been out there on the design work and the actual application of the school, but not involved in the playground.
Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve 14 on the consent agenda.
Second.
Further discussion? Okay, I'm ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thanks, Kim. 15.
Yeah, the ADA work at the physical plant, it's a first floor structure, and it's $24,000 for redesign on that in the conference room. I'm concerned that, this is being done before ADA concerns at some of our schools are being addressed, and this is pre-bond, and, the ADA needs at some of our schools are dependent on the bond vote, and this is going to happen if we approve it right now.
Well, first of all, this is physical plant equipment levy funds designated for ADA, some of this, but even more so than that, there's a couple other things that are driving this project. One is, this is the ADA restrooms for the nutrition services area, which is at one end of the building, and they do not have an ADA accessible restroom, so this is for staff, but it could eventually be used in a conference room that we may develop down there in the future. So that's one issue that's driving it. The other part of this is that the entrance doors to that and the other office are being improved for security, and for energy. So there's kind of three things that are driving this project, but it is basically related to the Food and Nutrition Services project that we just completed. They do not have an ADA restroom.
I mean, I sort of have the same question as Phil. I mean, it seems like a worthy project, but I do kind of wonder, I mean, if the bond doesn't pass, are we going to wish we didn't spend that money on this project when we have a lot of other things that are just as worthy or more worthy? So some of the same concern there.
All right, entertain a motion.
I move we approve consent agenda item number 15.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. Cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Kirschling, Lynch, and Ressler voting yea, and Directors Liebig and Hemingway voting nay.
All right, number 16.
And on 16, I just wanted a little further explanation on your pads out there. Are they going to be permanent bleachers, or is it a pad just for temporaries? Or
No, and I just looked at the plans before the meeting this evening. My understanding is that it's permanent. It's a permanent bleacher and slab that would be on the west side of the soccer field that runs north and south. It also has a little drainage and irrigation work that's being done, and of the $43,650, City High athletic funds of $20,000 are actually being applied towards this. So we're only going to use $23,000 of Pebble money to do this project.
Right, it's 46,000, not 460.
43,650, I think.
Yeah. Right.
And when you say soccer field, you mean the turf field?
Yes, sir.
And it's in our IPM meetings, Ben's okay with the design as far as it's not going to add to his burden trimming or anything like that. And we're still going to have natural seating on the banks and everything.
Right, and concrete slabs under bleachers are a good thing for IPM because there's less weeding to do. It's easier to keep clean.
But, and it is a permanent structure. It's not, we believe it's a permanent structure?
It is.
Okay.
I said I looked at the plans before I came in tonight.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it is, all right.
I move that we approve item 16.
Further discussion? Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, moving to agenda setting. First is the 28th. Right out of the gate, I'm going to suggest that we add supporting our immigrant students.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And add pre-K. Let's follow up from a conversation in the Education Committee.
Okay, and could we also put on there an IPM discussion?
Is the IPM committee ready to come back?
Excuse me?
Are you ready to come back?
Yeah, we've got a resolution that Ben's in the final stages of just kind of giving us a acreage number. So in a month's time, I think he can do that. Ben, you can have an acreage number for us for the IPM discussion at a board meeting for the 28th.
So we left this as a follow-up for you guys to tell us when you're ready, right? So you ready the 28th, or?
I think the goal is to have it ready for the 28th. Dave and I are working on the total acreage
Okay,
right
well,
now.
let's add it, and then if you can't make it, we'll
Right,
move
exactly.
it. All right.
That's we were in agreement at the committee meeting, and it was just the last X in it was total number of acreage.
We told you guys to come back and tell us.
Yeah, so I think we're ready. That's why we want to put it on.
Would it be possible at the work session or the board meeting to get maybe just a quick update on the seclusion room task force or committee progress? And nothing extensive, but people seem to be asking about it and who's on the
So
committee.
we add
and
that
all
to the work session, because it might be a dynamic seclusion room. You ready? You got a whole month, right? So that's the good news.
Yeah.
So,
and are those
you prefer to have it
meetings-
at the meeting? Just so you know how to stick around till the work session? Okay.
The question is, do you need action? No, and then I think it's a better conversation in work session.
So one thing that I'd like to bring up at some point, maybe it doesn't have to be March 28th, but certainly between now and May, There's some really exciting things going on over at Transitions Services Center, and I'd like to get kind of an update on not only not so much the physical space renovation, but the program itself, where we stand with the program. And I think it'd be a good item, maybe, like I said, not the 28th, but.
So are we making that request to you, Matt, or would it be, is it facilities? I think you're asking for an overall transition.
Yeah, it's more the program itself, but in light of the exciting overhaul in the facilities, I think it's.
Well, how about we take that away and we'll decide where, if it's best, if that's okay, transitions update.
Yeah, just between now and May.
It's programming and facilities.
The longtime leader for Transitions is retiring
Yep.
in May, and I think it's a good idea for us to see where the program stands now as opposed to where it stood 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep. Sure. Maybe we can build in something post their graduation or something too, I don't know. Okay?
In regard to the agenda item for support of immigrants, do we need to specify out a subtopic for the task force discussion? Do we need to take action to establish that if we, at our work session, decide that's something we're going to pursue?
Well, I think we can talk that in work session. And
Right, we'll talk it in work session, but does it need to be on the board agenda, or meeting agenda as well? Is it something we
Maybe.
need to take action on? Could we add it as a
well, that's
placeholder?
I think we already said that, supporting our immigrant.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just asking, does the task force itself have to be a separate item? Or
No,
can it be
no.
part of
Oh,
all
yeah.
that? Okay.
Just do it all at once. I was assuming we may come back with a resolution and then, yeah, any other.
And then we can
if,
add that.
If we need action, then we'd do it right there.
Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you.
Okay, anything else on that one? Board work session. I think we can delete the first topic, board goals, right? It's on the retreat. Anything else for work session? We'll check, and so we've added the seclusion room, all right? So that'll give us 3 good topics.
Well, and at some point in time, and I don't know if this should start in the Ed committee or what, but a discussion on school culture, classroom expectation, kind of / attendance policy type of discussion.
Well, we put
That's
that-
pretty broad, I know, but.
Well, we put that in education committee for now.
Okay.
School culture, right?
Right, school
Yeah.
culture. I think that'd be a good starting point, and classroom expectations.
Got it. That would be in April, I believe.
Okay.
Board retreats on there, same agenda as we reviewed last time. Any other agenda items? With that, I'll just say before we're going to, immediately following this, we'll transition to the back of the room for our work session. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.